in collaboration with the Cyprus Mail. This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous on mycyradio.eu.
Coming up this week, US Vice President Joe Biden wraps up his visit to Cyprus.
There's clearly a lot of work to be done, but what I'm hearing gives me hope that a solution is within reach this time.
A fiasco at the European Parliament elections disenfranchises thousands of Turkish Cypriot voters.
They actually even told him, you should go to Paphos and vote there. What kind of a joke is this? The elections will have to be repeated. They should be repeated, no matter what.
We'll hear about cultivating peace, one heart at a time.
Is something that we need to move and get people to find their own truth, nobody else's truth, but to update the truth. A truth that was the truth 20 years ago, 30 years ago, even 5 minutes ago is not necessarily the truth, as we ourselves find a new way of thinking and a new way of behaving.
And this weekend sees Cyprus' first ever Gay Pride March.
We maintain that our claims are purely from the state. They're political demands that we have. They're nothing to do with the church itself.
The big story last week was the visit to Cyprus of US Vice President Joe Biden. He met with the leaders of the two communities to discuss ways to move the peace process forward. He also spent some time with civil society activists, and you can hear his speech to them on my YouTube channel. The audio, sadly, is not very good, but what he had to say, speaking off the cuff with just a few notes, is both frank and inspiring. Just before he left Cyprus, the Vice President made this statement to the press at the Leader Palace Hotel in the UN buffer zone.
We had a very productive discussion, building on the meetings I had with each leader separately earlier in the day. The fact that we break bread tonight in the heart of a beautiful ancient city, but also in a buffer zone that separates one Cypriot community from another, reminds us that things were not always as they are now. They do not have to remain the way they are now. A better path is open, and I'm pleased that the two leaders have reaffirmed their full commitment to their joint declaration of February the 11th. The two leaders agreed to speed up the process of negotiations toward a comprehensive settlement, which is their priority. They agreed to meet at least twice a month to this end. Their next meeting will be on June the 2nd. The two leaders also agreed to intensify work on preparing meaningful confidence-building measures as envisioned in the joint declaration. The two leaders also agreed to revitalize the bi-communal technical committees to improve the daily lives of Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots. The two leaders also agreed to jointly call upon all those who have any information on missing persons to share that information with the Committee on Missing Persons in order to assist the committee in advancing its work. They agreed that additional resources should be provided for the work of the committee. For our part, the United States will engage with all stakeholders to explore mutually beneficial initiatives to reinforce settlement negotiations. And let me thank my colleagues again, and I look forward to seeing them again.
The two leaders and the two negotiators then left the podium along with the UN Special Representative in Cyprus, Lisa Buttenheim. But Vice President Biden stayed and continued.
Let me add that I've been engaged in negotiations around the world in many difficult conflicts, but I must tell you, I have been truly impressed by the cordiality and the ease with which both leaders speak to one another. and negotiate with one another. Tonight, I heard both leaders confirm a common objective: reunification of Cyprus as a bizonal, bicommunal federation. I heard common ground on certain aspects of these negotiations. I also heard differences, but I do not believe they are irreconcilable differences. There is clearly a lot of work to be done, but what I'm hearing gives me hope that a solution is within reach this time. The United States encourages the leaders to discuss a package on Varosha and Famagusta. If the two sides were to agree on this, the United States would stand ready to assist on the implementation. The United States is also hoping to see quick and substantial progress on a number of core issues, which would allow the sides to enter the final phase of UN-led negotiations. But ultimately, the solution cannot come from the outside. It cannot come from the United States or anywhere else. It has to come from the leaders of the two communities and from the compelling voices of the civil society leaders I heard from earlier today. People have asked me, what's in this for the United States? I tell you, President Obama and I believe that Cyprus is a key partner in a challenging region. And we know it can be even a stronger partner if the next generation of Cypriots can grow up without the burden of conflict. That would expand people's horizons to dream of something much bigger. It would unlock their talents and liberate them to do remarkable things. Cyprus can be a growing force for peace, prosperity, and stability in the Eastern Mediterranean. And that would benefit the world. That would benefit us all. There will always be doubters, but I heard tonight from two leaders committed to proving them wrong. The great Irish poet who recently passed away, Seamus Heaney, once wrote in a poem ironically called The Cure at Troy. He had a stanza in that poem that reads as follows: "History teaches us," he said, "not to hope on this side of the grave, but once in a lifetime, the longed-for tidal wave of justice rises up, and hope and history rhyme. For the sake of the boys and girls born on this island, who deserve the possibility that only peace can bring, let's finally make hope and history rhyme together. May God bless Cyprus, may God bless America, and may there be a speedy resolution. Thank you all for staying so late this evening for my statement. Good night.
US Vice President Joe Biden wrapping up his visit to Cyprus last week.
Keep up to date with events and news in Cyprus with the Cyprus News Digest. You can stream it live on mycyradio.eu, listen again on the Cyprus Mail website, or download the podcast to your phone or tablet and listen anytime, anywhere.
Now, the other big story this week has been the EU elections. Unlike many parts of Europe, voting patterns in Cyprus were much as they have always been, and right-wing DISI and communist AKEL both took 2 of the 6 seats, with 1 each going to Diko and to the alliance of EDEK and the Green Party. The elections, however, were marred by what's being called a clerical error, whereby many Turkish Cypriots who were being included in the electoral register for the first time since the Turkish invasion in 1974 were denied the right to cast their vote. Deniz Berinci, MEP candidate for the only bicommunal grouping in the elections, had this to say.
What went on today actually is a huge disgrace for European democracy, not only Cypriot democracy, but for European democracy. We, as Turkish Cypriots, we have been running against the currents on our side as well. All the Turkish Cypriot political parties represented in the Turkish Cypriot Assembly, they have been calling out to people not to go to vote. They have been calling people to boycott these elections. We have stood up against them, and we took the bold step, and we did enter the elections here, just to be faced with additional difficulties put in front of us by the Republic of Cyprus. And that difficulty was that they passed a law which said that every single Turkish Cypriot who resides in the areas not under the effective control of the Republic of Cyprus would be automatically added to the electoral lists, as long as they did state an address which is not in the areas which are under the effective control of the Republic. So what happened is tens of thousands of Turkish Cypriots, as you have rightly stated, they did go and declare their addresses on the other side. But what happened is, when the civil servants were transferring this data from the hard copy, from the actual application forms, into the computer system, because they could not read Turkish, or I don't know why, we have yet to find out. At first I didn't want to believe that this can be a straight-out discrimination against the whole community. But now, at the end of the day, I mean, I was very careful in the morning when I made a comment that it was a very mild comment when I was asked specifically about whether I consider this as a straight-out discrimination against the Turkish Cypriots. I said no. But now, having seen thousands of them come and get refused just because there is no address in the system, I mean, which state in the whole world gives out citizenship to anyone who doesn't even declare their address? Obviously these people declared their address, and this is going to be proven, no worries, when we ask for an investigation, and when that investigation takes place, everybody is going to see whose fault this has been straight from the beginning. I mean, the Minister of Interior Affairs himself came out and told us that there are 10,000 Cypriot citizens with no addresses declared. How can this be possible, for goodness sake?
So basically what happened was the people who had assumed, if they'd read the rules, that they would be allowed to vote, they were told, I think, to take their ID cards, their Cypriot Republic of Cyprus ID cards, and they did. But with those cards, they were still not allowed to vote.
Exactly. And in fact, I know that this is what happened because I was there, present myself, when my own grandfather went and made his application. I know full well that we put as his address Göçmenköy, which is a district of Nicosia in the northern parts of Nicosia. But if the civil servant didn't know what Göçmenköy is, the easiest thing was to see that he was born in Paphos, so they put down as his residential address Paphos. But the man was born in Paphos. It's been years since he last had the chance to live in Paphos. He still goes there every weekend to visit his place, but his place is only stones. There's not even a house there. And the government is looking at his face and claiming, no, you live in Paphos. So they actually even told him, you should go to Paphos and vote there. What kind of a joke is this?
Well, he wouldn't have been allowed to vote in Paphos if they had his address in Paphos, because he probably hadn't gone to put himself on the electoral register, which is what people with addresses in the Republic needed
so
to do.
It's as if the Republic is making straight-out fun of its own citizens. I mean, this is unacceptable.
The other problem I see with all of this, apart from, yes, you say there should be an investigation, one certainly hopes that there will be. You said that the Minister of the Interior came down to the polling station this morning. What did he say? Because actually the ultimate responsibility for this is his. He is the minister. The buck stops on his desk. Did he take responsibility?
Absolutely no, by all means. And in fact, he went further to accuse us, to blame us for all this mistake that he himself is personally in charge of. He claimed that in that particular polling station, which was near the Leader Palace, he claimed that only 3 people had been rejected till the moment that he arrived there, which was a huge lie, of course. There were hundreds of people that were getting refused, but this is all unrecorded because somebody comes and they're declined, And there's no official registration about how many people have been suffering. We have been there. I was there personally. I was observing the frustration of the people. I was the one who was getting phone calls from all the different polling stations saying, Denise, we went there with buses and we were not allowed. Obviously, it's not only 3 people. So when we said to him that, it's completely wrong and misinformation, misguiding the people to say that it's been only 3 people, he told us, no way, who are you to know? And he started shouting at us, literally shouting, a minister shouting at his own citizens in front of the public eye. And then afterwards, his bodyguards, security guards, they tried to keep us away. And he came outside to actually talk in front of the press and say, 3-5 women, they came around me and they started talking to me, buru buru. This is exactly what he said, buru buru. And of course I had to shout at them. A minister publicly accepting that he shouted at women. What is this? What is this? What kind of a democracy is this? It's not about women or men. We were there all together, women and men, Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots, all together. And in fact, it was an amazing show of solidarity because we had a lot of Greek Cypriots. Like right now, I have got Greek Cypriot friends around me who are here supporting me. We had, men and women, Greek Cypriot, Turkish Cypriot, all standing up for our rights together. And here it was, the main person in charge of all this mess, telling us that it was 3-5 women who encircled him and who started talking buru buru. So there and then I asked him to resign. And so did all the other people there. They all started clapping, asking him to resign. He went further. He said that, it's all the Turkish Cypriots' fault because, 10,000 of them didn't even bother to declare their address. And I asked him, what kind of a state gives out citizenship to its people without even getting any addresses, without any address records? This is unbelievable.
Where do you go from here? Because there are obviously a lot of unhappy people about this situation, and I believe that the turnout as the polls closed was recorded at something like 53%. I think I'm right in saying that's even lower than last time round. One wonders if there hadn't been the mess with the Turkish Cypriot voters, whether it was going to be much higher.
For sure it was going to be. And I believe that no official of the Republic of Cyprus has the right to talk about abstention. None of them. I'm sorry, they lost their chance. They should have thought about it, and they should have taken the necessary precautions before turning down so many people. Today, I think... I personally consider this as the biggest failure since Mari incident. It's a huge scandal, and what we are thinking about doing is definitely, no matter what the results will be, we are going to ask for an investigation to take place so that everybody will see with their own eyes, because we went and we entered a couple of examples of ID numbers, and we have seen that these people have actually declared addresses in the north, but for some reason they were not in the system. And in one particular case, for instance, we had a person whose address appeared in Palapayas. And the official asked us, but how are we supposed to know that Palapayas is in Kyrenia? This is a joke. Either the government is making fun of the people or something else is going on. But whatever it is, it has to come out. And we have asked the people after midday today to ask the officials to give them a signed and stamped document saying that they did go to vote with their ID numbers, but they were declined.
And did they get those?
They get those, and those pieces of paper are like right now they're like golden bracelets in our hands. With those, we can go everywhere. With those, we can ask the minister to resign, and he has to resign actually right now. We can even ask the whole government to resign, and we can ask for this investigation to take place, at the end of which it will be 100% proven. I'm that sure, because we know for fact these people are not, they're not lying. And we know for sure that they did declare their addresses. So when this comes out, the elections will have to be repeated. They should be repeated, no matter what. All these people should be included back to where they should have been in the first place. And the elections should be repeated with the same exact candidates.
Denise Birinci of the Drasi Evlem bicommunal coalition group standing in the EU elections. Incredibly, the disenfranchisement of so many voters has received little or no coverage in the Greek Cypriot media. But recourse to legal action is expected. This is the Cyprus News Digest. I'm Rosie Charalambous, and I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to get in touch, it's very simple. cyprusnewsdigest@gmail.com is our email address, and your feedback's always welcome. Dr. Brenda Davis is back in Cyprus to continue her island-wide workshops, Cultivating Peace, one heart at a time. She's with us on the programme today. Brenda, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
When you say cultivating peace one heart at a time, what are you trying to achieve?
Well, for me, I'd like to take the whole issue of creating peace into people's hearts and away from politics. I think that peace is not the province of politicians at all, but the potential of every human heart. And only when we take it back and look at things very uniquely, individually in our own lives and hearts, and deal with whatever conflict and pain we individually might have, can we come to a place of peace within ourselves, which then enables us to find peace around us and be part of a process of peace wherever we are.
And I'm imagining, since human emotion and reaction to it is pretty universally the same, that this is something that could be, if you like, catching.
Yes, absolutely. I usually find that if we can find a little core of people who will come to peace, then around them they create islands of peace, and very soon you could have a whole island of peace here.
This is a difficult situation, but you've worked in other conflict areas.
Yes, I have.
How do you approach the hurt that people feel in pretty recent past?
Yeah, I think that the hurt, of course, needs to be acknowledged and recognised, and people need to have the time and the right and the atmosphere in which they can deal with that peace and they can talk. Last time I was here, the whole time I was here, we were working on people being able to come and tell their story, and just in a place where it's peaceful and people will listen, they could tell their story. And then often, you know, as hurt comes to the surface, if the atmosphere is right, we can heal in behind it and heal the wound it leaves, and then a lot of movement can happen in hearts.
Now, you are, I think, medically qualified, so you bring something else as well to this whole ethos of healing through peace. How do the two coincide?
Well, I'm a psychiatrist. I used to be a surgeon, but I'm a consultant psychiatrist, and of course I spend much of my professional life with people who've been hurt, people who are in turmoil, people who are in great difficulties because of loss. And I've had losses in my life too. And I find that if we can once help people to come to inner peace and to deal with this conflict and deal with their loss, then their lives change enormously. And to me, with great respect, the finding of peace at somewhere like here is secondary to me. If we can have the people heal, the peace then just happens. And I think that that's really important.
Well, it's certainly a hopeful message.
Good.
You've been here before, and I'm sure you're going to be coming back again. What sort of reaction have you had? Because you've worked with both Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots.
Yes, I have.
What sort of reaction have you had from them? Have you found people coming up to you and saying, OK, you have actually changed the way I look at this situation? Because for 40 or more years, both communities have been bombarded with hatred, and that's very difficult to change.
It is very difficult to change. And I think that almost brainwashing with propaganda is something that we need to move and get people to find their own truth, nobody else's truth, but to update the truth. A truth that was the truth 20 years ago, 30 years ago, even 5 minutes ago, is not necessarily the truth, as we ourselves find a new way of thinking and a new way of behaving. If we can, if we're willing, we can update our truth and see actually what people said, what people did, whatever, was partly because of the way they were feeling, and how I reacted was because of how I was feeling, and we can come together and update the truth, and everything changes. And so, yes, I did have people, and I feel very honoured by it. I had people from both sides coming and talking about, how they found it and how they were able to look at things in a different way, and how they would see people differently and see what had happened differently, see their own part in it differently. And I was very moved, as you'll hear from my voice, by one young man who came and said, "I didn't come for me. My wife didn't come for her. We came so that our child can live in a peaceful Cyprus." For me, that says it all.
It certainly does. Brenda, as I say, here in Cyprus for workshops, and you can find out more on her website, which is www.brendadavies, that's BRENDADAVIES.com. Brenda, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
You can listen anytime, anywhere to the Cyprus News Digest by subscribing to the podcast.
Well, Saturday is a big day indeed for Accept LGBT Cyprus. It is the very first gay pride parade that's ever been held on the island. The president of Accept LGBT is with me. He is Kostas Gavrielidis. Kostas, I guess you're feeling quite excited. Have you tried to do this before and it just hasn't come off? Or how is it that this year, finally, you're going to do this?
We are extremely excited. We tried to have the first Pride last year, actually, but because of the situation, the economic situation, we decided back in the end of March last year, beginning of April, that it wouldn't have been the best of times. To be honest with you, also that the organization this year felt much more stronger to be able to hold such a big event. And here we are, a couple of days before the event, and it's gone much better than we originally thought.
So what actually is going to be happening? Because this is, if you like, a culmination of a series of events that you've been running
Correct.
through the week.
Yes. The first day of the event was on the 17th of May. That was the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia. And the big event is on the 31st of May, which is the actual Pride Parade itself. It's going to be starting from Eleftheria Square, the beginning of Lydra, and we'll be heading towards the municipal garden behind the Parliament, and it starts at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Who is taking part? You've got a lot of support, I think, coming from the Turkish Cypriot side as well, who have probably had even worse a time, I guess, as gays than even the Greek Cypriots have.
Yeah, we cooperate together with Queer Cyprus, which is the Turkish Cypriot LGBT organisation in the north, and we were hoping to be able to hold an event that would be purely bi-communal. But we took into account the actual situation, the political situation as it now is, and we decided to start the event. What we had on the 17th of May was what we originally thought was going to be a simple walk in the north, which we were planning to have about 50 people coming to that, finishing with the actual Cyprus Pride in the south. We were very impressed that the 50 people that we were expecting ended up being 200, more than 200, and very vocal people as well. It was very interesting, very nice experience.
There's been a lot of criticism, particularly from religious circles in Cyprus. What's your answer to all of that?
It was to be expected, to be honest with you. We say that we're not against this criticism. Obviously, the church can have its own opinion, which we don't share at all. But nevertheless, they can have their own opinions. We maintain that our claims are purely from the state. They're political demands that we have. They're nothing to do with the church itself. So even though that the church can have its own opinion, then we expect tangible results and tangible solutions from political parties, from the political institutions themselves.
And they've also been very slow in coming forward. I mean, it's very recently that all of this became even legal. Why do you think it was that it took Cyprus so long? In
the north, it just became legal just in January. Mm-hmm. In the south, it became legal in 1998. And that was 5 years after the European Court of Human Rights actually demanded that homosexuality was decriminalized following Alekos Modinos' case that was taken to the European Court of Human Rights. It took 5 years for Cyprus to implement that decision, and it was after quite a lot of struggle, and it was not an easy case. And back then, again, the church itself, again, they were very vocal against the decriminalization of homosexuality. It happened. Unfortunately, what we've seen is that since 1998, not much has changed, and it only came into formation in 2010, and we're officially registered as the first organization that deals with LGBT rights since 2011. So you realize that in that meantime, from 1998 to 2010, 12 years, not much had actually changed as far as the legal rights towards Cypriots.
What about the attitudes? Because, again, our politicians are really not known for being free thinkers. They, too, are very reticent about coming out in support, and yet I noticed that an awful lot of foreign ambassadors are going to actually be going to the gay pride.
15 of them, actually. 15 foreign missions are going to be there, and we're very excited to have the support. Not only the 15 foreign missions, but we have the representation of the European Commission in Cyprus, the Office of the European Parliament in Cyprus are also very supportive. Officially, AKEL and DC are also supportive of the Pride, not the other parties yet. We are hoping that by the actual Pride Day they will come forward as well. What we've seen is that the Pride has been good in actually discussing the rights of LGBT, and internally, you had politicians that would come out and say that yes, of course we support LGBT rights, and then they had absolutely no idea what that meant. And we think that now with the Pride there has been some sort of internal discussion of why do we support it and how do we support it, and I think this has helped generally the acceptance and understanding of what exactly the LGBT people want. And to be frank, the LGBT rights that we're looking for, it's human rights. We are not asking for anything that is not there, that for any other Cypriot. We're asking for a recognition, or let's say a stop of the way that people are being discriminated based on their sexual orientation or gender identity.
Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.